Yo, what is up everybody? It is your boy Zeddy here, back at it again to drop the finale for What If Deku was Meruem's reincarnation. This series has been really dope to do, and it's been really funny to do the Deku and Nezu dynamic. I don't think I've ever done that in any What If that I've ever done before. I've had a lot of fun with this What If, however, there needs to be room for others, so sadly this is going to be the last part for Meruem Deku. Important links will be down in the description, such as my Discord server, the Akatsuki new channel, which I am featured in, and my the thumbnail maker who made the amazing thumbnail. That being said, though, guys, make sure you guys stay tuned for the finale, and let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so we start off our story right where I had left off, after Midnight ends up asking for Deku's number. Now, as you guys do remember, on the last part I had said that Deku ends up going to the internship with All Might. Well, I also ended up asking you guys whether Midnight and Deku should have a little bit of a thing happen, seeing as, you know, there isn't a ship and I've never done a Midnight ship, and I was wondering if you guys would want one. Now, I understand the ship wasn't really going to fit Meruem's character, however, this isn't exactly all Meruem, so it kind of makes sense if you really think about it. That being said, though, this is when Deku would end up going home, and Kirishima would walk up to Deku as he would ask Deku who he's going to internship with. Deku would say he's going to be interning with All Might since, you know, he really honestly has no other choices, and Kirishima says that's awesome. He would also ask Deku if he wants to go to the weight room, and Deku would say sure, as they would end up going there, and Nezu would already be there. So he would have like a towel wrapped around his neck, and he'd be wearing a pretty cool shirt, you know, a workout shirt, as Nezu would be lifting a solid 10 pounds. You know, he'd be lifting a solid 10 pounds. You know, he's going for high reps, not, you know, not low reps, heavy weight, right? And our boy Nezu just, you know, lifting that weight. You know, he's going crazy. He's going insane. He's lifting up the barbell, right? Now, this is when Deku would look at Nezu and just start kind of smiling, as he would then start hitting some sets with Kirishima, and he would start spotting, you know, Kirishima a little bit, as they would both just start working out as they usually do. And this is when, halfway through everything, Midnight would send Deku a text asking him if he wants to internship with her. She would send him a little bit of a winky face and tell him that, you know, she would actually be willing to teach him some other stuff other than how to just become a hero. And Deku, after seeing that message, would ask what she means. It's at this moment that she would send some water emojis, and after seeing that, Deku immediately knows what she means. Deku would think about this and wonder whether he should, you know, take part in studying, as, you know, Deku would just kind of text back and say sure thing, as this is when Deku would kind of not really think about it too much. He would then end up finishing up the day, as it's immediately when afterwards he would get a picture sent to him by Midnight, and it would of course be a picture of a math book, of course, you know, like a math book, you know, the one that he has to pick up from the library. As Deku would look at that and, you know, he'd smile, and this is when Deku would proceed to basically just go home, as he would end up just having a normal day. He'd go home, his mother Inka would make him some dinner, and Deku would just kind of go to the next day. As he would take a train to Midnight's agency, Deku would arrive, to which immediately Midnight starts kind of showing Deku what it's like to become a hero, as well as throwing books at him, if you get what I'm saying. You know, by books I mean herself. And Deku would proceed to learn about multiplication. You know, he'd start learning biology, and he's a very hands-on, you know, very hands-on learner, I guess you could say, right? Deku ends up, you know, he ends up getting an A+ from Midnight, and that's basically what happens in the internship. Deku does a whole lot of studying. He studies up on how to become a hero, his math, his books, the tech books. It's beautiful. You know, we all love this version of Deku. Anyways, Now we have them all go back to school, and this is when they all would end up going through the events of the finals and the race. Of course, they returned back to school where they would have the race, and Kirishima would ask Deku, what have you done? Deku would proceed to tell Kirishima that he learned a little bit about how to become a hero and other stuff. At midnight, would actually walk into the room and she would wink at Deku, to which nobody would be able to see, and she would end up just giving her normal lessons, right? At this point, All Might would then take the kids and they would have the race to see who can rescue him the fastest. Of course, Deku ends up winning, and this would lead into Aizawa actually explaining to all the students that they are actually going to be having Forest Training Camp arc. And seeing as there's no real anything going on with UA and All Might is actually healed, they're all going to be present. Of course, the USJ attack was a big hit for UA. However, they were able to bounce back from it fast due to the fact that Deku was around. He was able to save everything. So they would have about 2 weeks to study for everything, and Deku would of course ace the written exam. Deku during this time would kind of, just hang out with Kirishima and Nezu, and that little routine is basically all that he does. In terms of the finals, Deku of course ends up fighting against All Might, but it's just a one-sided stomp. I don't even want to cover it, though. Actually, I might as well. Deku and All Might would face each other, as Deku's actually on a team with Kirishima. He'd grab Kirishima and grab his arm, as he would literally throw Kirishima towards All Might's direction, and Kirishima would just get blown straight at Deku, as immediately, Deku would basically tell Kirishima to finish All Might off, as Kirishima would say, right, and he would then say, Red Riot, as immediately he would start using the abilities of Red Riot, the ones that he ends up learning later on in the series, except this version of Kirishima actually ends up learning them a little earlier on than the original Kirishima does. So this is when Deku would proceed to, essentially just go through with all this little normal stuff that usually happens in the My Hero Academia timeline stuff. And, after this, Kirishima would blitz towards All Might. He'd hit him head on, kind of like in a Gohan when he hit Raditz type thing. That ends up happening, causing All Might to, gasp for air. And immediately, Deku would blitz behind him, as he elbows All Might's head straight to the ground, and All Might is just done for. After that, that's basically all that happens. All Might has to sit in Recovery Girl's little office thing for about 2 hours to heal, and Deku just kind of works out with Nezu and Kirishima. My boy Nezu's getting, he's getting pretty toned, and if I do say so myself. And of course, this is when we're now going to cover the Forest Training arc. However, villains are all taken care of, so the Forest Training arc has no real content to cover. Of course, the Forest Beast stuff happens, but do you guys really want me to sit here and spend 20 minutes talking about how they defeat little weak monsters, especially with the fact that Deku can literally Madara Shinobi Alliance these characters? And since there is no villain attack, it all just goes to canon. The only real thing that there is to cover is that Koda doesn't end up hitting Deku, so Deku's his family prize is still there. And with no villains comes no hideout raid. With no hideout raid, just comes the provisional hero license exam arc, to which Deku and the whole class would end up going to, and of course, Deku would end up just getting swarmed by all of the other classes, as well as being asked by other people, what his quirk is, they're wondering what Deku's all about. Kirishima and Deku would kind of be bros at this point, not in the term where it's normal friends, but Deku would kind of consider Kirishima, someone who's sort of a friend to Deku, just due to the fact that, Kirishima and Deku kind of have a little bit of an understanding with each other, not in a crazy way, but yeah. And Bakugo's still salty about how hard Deku ended up whooping him, so yeah, that's basically all that ends up happening. Bakugo ends up failing it, and Todoroki ends up failing the exam, just because they're both, I don't really think that they would pass in this version still, so they would both end up failing, and we are now going to cover them all going back to class and meeting the big three. Now, immediately when Mirio walks into the class, he would see Deku and immediately just feel the need to challenge Deku. This would lead into Deku getting challenged by Mirio, and Mirio would of course end up taking a L. Mirio would have actually caught Deku off guard with his ability to phase through, because Deku would have actually tried to simply hit Mirio's pressure points, but due to the fact that Mirio could just phase through him, he wasn't able to touch him. So afterwards, Mirio was actually able to almost get it hit on Deku, but Deku's reflexes were just too fast for him, and he would end up using his Nen abilities to sense Mirio's location, as before he could have even attacked him, Deku was able to sense where Mirio was going to hit. Even when Mirio like did the poking eye thing, Deku can still see without his eyes using Nen, so he was able to dodge and punch Mirio right back. I know some of y'all are going to clown me for that in the comments down below. Just get it over with. And this would lead to Deku actually having a little bit of a liking towards Mirio. However, Deku ends up going with Kirishima's Fat Gum internship because, well, you know, he wants to go with Kirishima's bro. So he ends up doing that, and instead of going with Midnight, Mirio is the only one that, you know, ends up doing that. This leads into Mirio being the only one who witnesses Eri, and he would be the only one who ends up feeling bad in this version of events. Now, it's at this point that Deku would, of course, you know, just be brought up because, you know, Kirishima was brought when they had like the work stories, the hero work study stuff, and they rounded up all the heroes and like student heroes that they could get. Deku was actually a part of that. So this means that the raid on Shisaki or Overhaul would end up happening, but with everything happening a lot easier than it did in canon. Immediately after Deku realizes that Mirio let a girl get like somebody literally take that girl and continue to do the things he was doing to her, Deku would give Mirio a death stare, which would literally just have everybody in the room just be in fear of Deku. Like, they realized how powerful he was, and all of them already knew the extent of Deku's power. This man is broken. Like, this man is insane, right? Just to put it lightly. And like, he showed even more of that insanity for what he was about to do. So yeah, definitely did a pretty great job. Anyways, that being said, though, this is when we will now actually jump over to them all actually arriving to Overhaul's base, where Ryuk, the dragon hero, would bust in through the gate, and they would all end up rushing in everywhere. Mirio would, of course, end up making it to Overhaul first, and this would lead into Mirio getting his quirk erased, just like in canon. However, when Deku ends up arriving to Overhaul's location, I think Deku would actually be able to stop the bullet from hitting Mirio, because this version of Deku can sense where Overhaul's at, so he literally just busts straight through the walls, and he's able to arrive to Overhaul's location, leading to Deku actually taking the bullet instead of Mirio. And immediately after, he would use his Nen to basically cause Overhaul to literally pass out. He would project his negative intent towards him, and immediately just Overhaul would drop. Like, it's over for. Overhaul is just done for. After this, Deku grabs like Overhaul's head and smashes it into the pavement. As Eri sees what Deku just did, Deku would then walk over to Eri, and Eri would seem a little scared at first, but Deku would then reach his hand out, and she would feel how warm Deku's hands are. Deku would then take Eri and like kind of bring her in, as he would grab her and tell Mirio to get up. That if he wasn't strong enough, he might as well have just waited for the rest of them. He would then look towards Mirio and say that at least he tried though. And he would then proceed to just kind of go through with all of these normal, real kind of little events happening. Eri would end up getting over the fear of Overhaul, and the UA Sports Festival stuff would still happen with not sports but school festival with the gentle stuff. But instead, this version of Deku doesn't actually end up forgetting the stuff, and so when Gentle tries to do something at UA, Deku just completely obliterates him. Like, it's not even a contest. As soon as Gentle would come in being like, yes, I am a villain, like trying to record with La Brava, Deku would literally just blitz over there, flick him with his finger, and Gentle would just be flung into the forest with La Brava. They would both be taken into custody, and that's pretty much what happens in terms of that. The joint training arc stuff would still happen, but it's kind of a one-sided massacre, as almost all of these little things are. Meaning that later on, no meta liberation arc, because that doesn't end up happening with the villains. Instead, it actually ends up happening with the heroes, but Deku isn't present. All Might, as well as Endeavor and Hawks, and a couple of other like low tier pro heroes are the ones who end up actually handling that whole stuff when they get out of control. And that's basically what ends up happening in terms of events for the story. nothing else really ends up happening for this story of what if Deku was Meruem's reincarnation. So this is basically where I'm going to be ending this story off. I know, guys, today's videos were extremely short. I know, and I do apologize. I know usually I bring you guys 30-minute, 20-minute parts. However, like I said yesterday's, this part was really short due to the fact that the villains were all taken out in the school festival, instead of how everything ended up happening in the original canon, due to the fact that Deku was more powerful. Villains didn't attack at the USJ, so they ended up attacking at this festival, and that led to major ramifications. I should do series like this more often and finish them off real quickly. Some of you guys are probably like, no, don't do that, Zether, please. But yeah. Oh, also in terms of Midnight and Deku, that never ended up becoming a ship. That was just a one-time thing, by the way. For those of you who are like, no, Midnight and Deku. Oh, yeah, no, there was no ship. And Deku just kind of went on to become the #1 hero. Deku ended up accomplishing his goal. He removed crime rate of Japan to 0%, and he then went on to become the greatest hero there ever was. Meruem was a name revered and feared by all villains in the nation. And that is what would happen if Deku was Meruem's reincarnation, or what I think would have happened. If any of you guys want to do this series as well, what if Deku was Meruem's reincarnation, feel free to, and it'll be fun to see any of you guys' takes on it, seeing as I dropped the how to make what if YouTube video. So if you want to do this or any of my other series, don't even credit me, bruh. Just don't copy my story and we'll be straight. But this is where I'm going to be finishing off today's video. I hope you guys did enjoy the story, seeing as this was a really fun story to make. What if Deku was Meruem's reincarnation is definitely something for the books. But with that being said though, guys, you guys all know the drill. It has been your boy Zether, and I am out. Peace.